Dr. Rebecca Hayes wiped her tired eyes and stared at the data screen for the 100th time that morning. The electromagnetic readings from the Tau Ceti system showed tiny spikes every few hours, but the ship's AI kept dismissing them as normal. Space radiation. Something felt wrong about the pattern, but she couldn't prove it yet. The research vessel Meridian had been cruising through deep space for 3 months now, mapping star systems and collecting samples from distant worlds. Most of the crew found the work boring, but Rebecca loved the mystery of discovering new things in the vast darkness of space. She had spent 15 years studying alien technology, and her instincts rarely failed her. Captain Thomas Blake walked into the lab, carrying his morning coffee and looking tired. The 40-year-old commander had been running missions like this for over a decade, and he trusted his equipment more than hunches. "Still chasing those ghost readings, Hayes?" he asked, with a slight smile. "They're not ghost readings, Captain," Rebecca replied, pointing at the screen. "Look at the timing. These spikes happen every 6 hours and 12 minutes. That's not random cosmic radiation, that's a pattern." Blake studied the data for a moment, then shook his head. "The AI has analyzed this a dozen times. It's just background noise from the nearby star. We're dealing with old equipment out here, not alien mysteries." Before Rebecca could argue, the ship's lights flickered briefly. The hum of the engine stuttered for just a second, then returned to normal. Blake frowned and tapped his communication device. "Engineering report." "No problems down here, Captain," came the reply from Chief Engineer Pat O'Brien. "All systems running normally. Must have been a minor power fluctuation." Over the next few days, the strange incidents continued. The navigation system would freeze for a few seconds, then restart as if nothing had happened. The communication array would produce static at random moments. The defensive shields would flicker without any external threat detected. Petty Officer David Kim, a former military scout, started noticing other odd things. He had sharp eyes from years of watching for enemies in dangerous places, and something about the ship felt different. Shadows seemed to move when no one was there. Reflective surfaces showed brief distortions that made no sense. "I'm telling you, something's not right," Kim said to Dr. Ann Foster, the ship's medical officer, as they ate lunch in the cafeteria. "I've been in enough combat zones to know when I'm being watched. We're not alone on this ship." And gave him a skeptical look. "Space paranoia is a real thing, David. 3 months in deep space can make anyone jumpy." "Maybe you should talk to the counselor." Kim shook his head. "This isn't paranoia. Yesterday I saw my own reflection blink at me in the mirror, but I wasn't blinking. Today I watched a coffee cup move 2 inches to the left while I was looking at it. Nobody else was in the room." The breakthrough came during what seemed like another routine system malfunction. Rebecca was working late in her lab when the lights began flickering again. Frustrated, she grabbed her coffee mug and stood up quickly, accidentally knocking over the hot liquid. The coffee splashed across the control panel, and for just a moment, she saw something impossible. The spilled coffee outlined the shape of a hand that wasn't there. The liquid flowed around invisible fingers, revealing the clear outline of something touching the controls. Rebecca's heart raced as she watched the phantom hand pull away, leaving only the wet outline on the panel. "Security to Lab 3 immediately," she whispered into her COM device, trying to keep her voice steady. "We have an intruder." David Kim arrived first, his hand on his weapon. "Where's the intruder, Doc?" "Right there," Rebecca pointed at the coffee stain. "Look at the pattern. That's not random spillage. Something invisible touched my controls." Kim studied the evidence carefully. His military training had taught him to trust unusual observations, especially from people he respected. "If you're right, then we've been infiltrated by something using stealth technology far beyond anything humans have developed." Captain Blake arrived moments later with 2 security officers. He looked at the coffee-stained pattern and listened to Rebecca's explanation. His first instinct was to dismiss it as stress-induced imagination, but too many strange things had been happening lately. "Assuming you're correct," Blake said slowly, "how long have these things been on my ship, and what do they want?" "The electromagnetic readings started 3 months ago," Rebecca replied. right after we entered the Tau Ceti system. They've been here the whole time, watching us, learning about us. Kim nodded grimly. That explains why I felt like we were being observed. My combat instincts were picking up their presence even though I couldn't see them. Dr. Foster, who had arrived with the security team, examined the coffee stain with scientific curiosity. The hand shape is definitely not human. Look at the finger proportions and the overall size. We're dealing with an alien species. Blake made a decision that would change everything. From this moment forward, we assume the ship is compromised. By invisible hostiles, all crew members will work in pairs. No one goes anywhere alone. We need to figure out how to detect these things before they complete whatever mission they're on. The crew spent the next several hours quietly spreading the word about their invisible visitors. They had to be careful not to let the intruders know they had been discovered. Rebecca continued her normal work routine while secretly analyzing every sensor, reading for clues about the alien technology. Kim began teaching other crew members to trust their instincts. Don't ignore that feeling when something seems wrong, he told them. If you think you're being watched, you probably are. If a shadow moves wrong, pay attention. If you feel like someone just walked past you in an empty corridor, there's a reason. As night fell on the ship, the crew prepared for what they knew would be a dangerous game of cat and mouse. They were trapped in space with invisible enemies who had been studying them for months. Their only advantage was that the aliens didn't know they had been discovered. Rebecca lay awake in her quarters, listening to every small sound. Somewhere in the darkness, alien eyes were watching, alien hands were touching their equipment, and alien minds were planning something terrible. The crew of the Meridian would have to learn to fight an enemy they couldn't see. Using skills they barely understood, the hunt was about to begin. Commander Thale moved through the human ship like a ghost, his advanced stealth systems bending light around his tall, insect-like form. The Shrix had perfected invisibility over thousands of years, first as a survival mechanism on their dangerous homeworld, then as the ultimate weapon for conquest. No species had ever detected them before. The human vessel called Meridian was primitive compared to Shrix technology, but Thale found their rapid advancement concerning. These creatures had gone from simple tools to space travel in just a few thousand years. Such speed of development made them potentially dangerous to the Shrix Empire. His team of 12 warriors had been aboard the human ship for weeks, studying every aspect of their technology and behavior. The mission was simple: gather intelligence about human capabilities and weaknesses, then report back to the invasion fleet. The Shrix had used this method successfully against 17 other species across the galaxy. Thale paused near the ships bridge, watching the human called Blake giving orders to his crew. The Shrix commander had learned to understand human speech through careful observation and analysis. These beings were loud, emotional, and seemed to lack the discipline of proper warriors. Status report from Infiltration Team 7, Thale spoke into his communication device using the clicking language of his people. The device would translate his words into the minds of his scattered warriors. Observation post in engineering reports normal human activity, came the reply from Scout. Vrix. The humans continued to perform routine maintenance on their primitive power systems. Team 4 in the laboratory sections reports increased activity from the female called Hayes, added Warrior Kesh. She has been studying electromagnetic readings for several cycles. Her behavior suggests curiosity about our presence. Thale considered this information carefully. The Shrix had evolved on a world where any creature that could be seen was quickly killed by predators. Their natural camouflage abilities had been enhanced by technology until they could become completely invisible to any known detection method. Light bent around them, sound was muffled, and heat signatures were masked. Continue monitoring, but maintain distance, Thale ordered. Human primitive senses cannot detect us. Their technology is too crude to penetrate our stealth systems. As he moved through the ship's corridors, Thale noticed something that had been bothering him for days. Sometimes the humans would pause or change direction when his warriors were nearby. The female Hayes had stopped walking 3 times this week when invisible Shrix scouts were in her path. The male Kim had altered his route twice to avoid areas where Shriek's observers were stationed. These incidents were small and could be explained as coincidence. But Thale had survived long enough to know that coincidences were often warnings. His people had conquered other species by being completely undetectable, but something about these humans felt different. The Shricks had evolved as perfect predators on their homeworld of Nexus. Their planet was covered in dense forests where visibility meant death. Creatures that could be seen were eaten by the many predators that hunted by sight. Only those who could hide survived to reproduce. Over millions of years, the Shricks had developed natural abilities that made them nearly invisible even without technology. Their skin could change color and texture to match their surroundings. Their movements were completely silent. They could slow their heartbeat and breathing to almost nothing. When they discovered space travel, the Shricks realized their invisibility made them perfect for conquest. They would infiltrate other species' worlds, study their weaknesses, then coordinate surprise attacks. No enemy could fight what they couldn't see. Thale remembered the conquest of the Altarians, a proud warrior race that had seemed impossible to defeat. The Shricks had sent invisible scouts to their military bases, learned their battle plans, and struck at the perfect moment. The Altarians never knew what hit them. The Kethmori had been even easier. Their entire civilization was built around honor and facing enemies openly. When invisible Shricks warriors began killing their leaders, the Kethmori couldn't understand what was happening. They surrendered within days. 17 species had fallen to the Shricks using identical tactics. The pattern was always the same: infiltrate, observe, strike, conquer. The humans should have been just another easy victory, but something was wrong with this mission. Thale watched the human Kim teaching other crew members to trust their instincts and pay attention to unusual feelings. What kind of primitive nonsense was this? How could instincts detect advanced stealth technology? Commander, Scout Vrix contacted him urgently. The humans in engineering are behaving strangely. They keep looking directly at positions where our warriors are stationed. 3 times today they have moved equipment to block paths our team was using. Thale felt a chill run through his exoskeleton. Describe their behavior in detail. They do not appear to see us, Vrix replied. But they act as if they know we are there. The female Foster walked around empty space yesterday, but she was actually walking around Warrior Zeph. She could not have known he was there. This was unprecedented. No species had ever shown any awareness of invisible Shricks warriors. Their stealth technology was perfect, tested against the sensors of 17 different civilizations. It was impossible for these primitive humans to detect them. All units maintain maximum stealth protocols, Thel ordered. Increase distance from human subjects. We cannot risk exposure before the invasion fleet arrives. As he gave the order, Thale noticed that the human haze had stopped walking in the corridor ahead. She was standing perfectly still, her head tilted as if listening to something. There was no sound, no movement, nothing that should have caught her attention, but Warrior Kesh was standing directly behind her, invisible and silent. The human could not possibly know he was there, yet she remained frozen in place. After a long moment, she stepped to the side and continued walking, taking a path that avoided the invisible warrior completely. Thale felt fear for the first time in decades. The humans were detecting his warriors through some method the Shricks could not understand. If they could sense invisible enemies, then the entire invasion plan was in danger. The Shricks had built their empire on the assumption that invisibility was the ultimate weapon. They had never developed backup plans for fighting enemies who could somehow see them. Their technology was advanced, but their military tactics were entirely based on surprise attacks from hidden positions. Emergency protocol, Thale whispered into his communicator. Prepare for immediate evacuation if humans demonstrate confirmed awareness of our presence. We must warn the invasion fleet that these creatures possess unknown detection capabilities. As he spoke, the human Kim walked past him in the corridor. For just a moment, the human's eyes seemed to focus directly on Thale's position. The contact lasted only a second. but it was enough to send terror through the Shriek's commander's mind. The humans could see them. Somehow, impossibly, these primitive creatures could detect perfect Shriek stealth technology. The invasion fleet was walking into a trap, and Thale was the only one who knew the truth. He had to find a way to warn his people before it was too late. The emergency crew meeting took place in the ship's conference room at 0000 hours. Rebecca had spent the entire night researching human evolutionary biology, looking for answers to an impossible question. How could humans detect invisible enemies that their technology couldn't find? "We're fighting blind," Captain Blake said grimly as the senior staff gathered around the table. "Our sensors can't detect them, our cameras can't see them, and our AI doesn't even know they exist. But somehow some of you are aware of their presence." David Kim nodded slowly. "It's not something I can explain logically, Captain. When I was in the military, we called it battlefield awareness. You just know when someone's watching you or when danger is near. I thought it was just soldier talk, but now I'm not so sure." Dr. Foster leaned forward with interest. "There's actually scientific basis for that feeling. Humans have evolved specialized cells in their eyes called photoreceptors that can detect extremely small changes in light patterns. We also have sensitive nerve endings that respond to air pressure variations. But that doesn't explain how we can sense completely invisible enemies," Rebecca pointed out. "I've been studying the research all night, and I think I found something important. We're not detecting them with our eyes or our technology. We're using something much older." She activated the wall display and showed images of early human ancestors. For millions of years, humans were prey animals. We weren't the strongest or fastest creatures on Earth. We survived by being smart and by developing an incredible ability to sense danger. Chief Engineer Pat O'Brien, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "My grandmother used to say she could feel when storms were coming, even when the sky was clear. She was right more often than the weather reports." "Exactly," Rebecca continued. "Humans developed what we call intuition, but it's really a complex system of subconscious threat detection. Our brains process thousands of tiny environmental cues that we're not consciously aware of. Changes in air movement, subtle sounds, even variations in electromagnetic fields." Kim was beginning to understand. "So when I feel like someone's watching me, my brain is picking up clues that my conscious mind can't identify. The invisible aliens are still affecting their environment in ways our instincts can detect. The question is," Blake said, "can we train the entire crew to use these abilities? If we're going to fight an enemy we can't see, we need every advantage we can get." Kim stood up with determination. "I can teach basic threat awareness techniques. In Special Forces training, we learn to trust our instincts and react to subconscious warnings. It's not magic, it's just using senses that most people ignore." Over the next few days, Kim began training sessions with the crew. He taught them to pay attention to the feeling of being watched, to notice when shadows fell wrong, and to trust their gut reactions to empty spaces that felt occupied. "Don't think about it too much," he explained to a group of engineers. "Your conscious mind will try to rationalize away the warnings. Just act on your first instinct. If something feels wrong, it probably is." Rebecca worked with the science team to develop new detection methods based on human sensory capabilities. They couldn't see the aliens directly, but they could look for signs of their presence, disturbed dust patterns, changes in air circulation, even the subtle electromagnetic signatures their technology might produce. "We're essentially becoming human motion detectors," she explained to Dr. Foster. "Our brains are incredibly good at noticing when something doesn't belong in an environment, even if we can't see what it is." The crew began working together in a way that surprised everyone. People who had never shown any special abilities started reporting strange sensations and unusual observations. The ship's cook mentioned that the galley felt crowded even when he was alone. "A maintenance worker," said certain corridors gave him an uneasy feeling. "It's like we're all becoming part of a single detection system," Blake observed. "Each person is picking up different clues, and together we're building a picture of where these things are." Kim developed a system of subtle signals that allowed crew members to communicate about invisible threats without alerting the aliens. A hand on the shoulder meant something's behind you. Touching the nose meant invisible presence detected. Adjusting clothing meant possible threat in this area. The breakthrough came when Rebecca realized they could use the ship's environmental systems to their advantage. She began monitoring air circulation patterns, looking for unexplained changes that might indicate invisible bodies moving through the ship. "Look at this," she showed Blake and Kim the airflow data. "Every few hours there are small variations in the ventilation system. Something is blocking air currents in different parts of the ship." Kim studied the patterns carefully. "If we can predict where they'll be based on airflow changes, we can set up observation posts, maybe even catch one of them." The plan they developed was simple but effective. Using their new understanding of human threat detection, they would track the invisible enemies throughout the ship. The crew would work in pairs, using their instincts to identify alien positions while appearing to go about their normal duties. "Remember," Blake addressed the crew, "we can't let them know we've discovered them. Act normal, but stay alert. Trust your instincts, but don't react obviously to what you're sensing." As the days passed, the crew became more skilled at detecting their invisible visitors. They learned to recognize the feeling of being watched, to notice when empty spaces felt occupied, and to trust the subtle environmental cues their brains were processing. Rebecca discovered that the electromagnetic readings she had been studying were actually signatures from the aliens' stealth technology. The equipment wasn't malfunctioning, it was detecting energy patterns that the AI couldn't recognize. "We've been looking at this wrong," she told Kim excitedly. "Our technology can detect them, but only if we know what to look for. The AI dismisses their energy signatures as background noise because it has no reference point for this kind of stealth system." Kim grinned, "But our instincts know exactly what to look for. Millions of years of evolution have taught us to sense hidden predators. We just needed to remember how to listen to those warnings." The crew of the Meridian was learning to fight an enemy that had conquered 17 other species. But unlike those other civilizations, humans had retained something that advanced technology couldn't replace: the ability to sense danger in the darkness. Their invisible enemies had made a fatal mistake. They had assumed that all intelligent species would lose their primitive survival instincts as they developed technology. But humans had kept their evolutionary gifts, and now those ancient abilities would become their greatest weapon. The hunt was about to begin, and for the first time in their history, the Shricks would discover what it felt like to be prey. The trap was set in the ship's main cargo bay, where Rebecca had noticed the strongest electromagnetic readings. The crew had spent 2 days preparing, using their newfound abilities to track the invisible aliens' movement patterns. They knew the creatures visited this area every 6 hours, always following the same route. Pat O'Brien had quietly modified the bay's lighting system, creating subtle changes in illumination that would reveal any disturbance in the air. He had also installed pressure sensors under loose floor panels, disguised as routine maintenance work. The aliens wouldn't know they were being tracked until it was too late. "Remember, we only get one chance at this," Blake whispered to the team positioned around the cargo bay. "If we fail, they'll know we can detect them and change their behavior." Kim crouched behind a stack of supply crates, his trained eyes scanning the empty space ahead. After days of practice, he had learned to trust the subtle warnings his brain was sending him. The feeling of being watched, the sense that something was moving in his peripheral vision, the instinct that told him when danger was near. "Contact," he whispered into his cum device. Something just entered the bay from the north entrance, moving slowly toward the center. Rebecca, hidden behind a maintenance panel, watched her modified sensors. The electromagnetic readings were climbing steadily, confirming Kim's observation. "I'm seeing energy signatures consistent with their stealth technology. Whatever it is, it's getting closer." Dr. Foster, positioned near the bay's medical supplies, felt her skin prickle with the sensation of being observed. She had never believed in intuition before this mission, but now she trusted the ancient warnings her body was sending her. It's moving toward the equipment lockers. I can feel it watching us. The invisible alien moved through the cargo bay, with confidence, unaware that human eyes were tracking its every step. The Shrix had never encountered a species that could detect them, and Commander Thale's warrior was following routine patrol procedures. Now I can see the air displacement, Kim whispered. It's about 7 feet tall, moving on 2 legs. Definitely not human. Blake watched from the observation deck above, coordinating the trap through hand signals. The crew had practiced this scenario dozens of times, using their instincts to predict how the invisible enemy would behave. They knew it would head for the main computer terminal, where it had been accessing ship's data for weeks. It's almost in position, Rebecca reported. Energy readings are at maximum. Whatever we're going to do, we need to do it now. The plan was simple but required perfect timing. As the invisible alien approached the computer terminal, Pat would activate the modified lighting system while Kim and 2 security officers would surround the area. They couldn't see their target, but they could feel where it was. Execute. Blake ordered quietly. The lights in the cargo bay shifted from normal, white to a special frequency that revealed air disturbances. Suddenly, the outline of a tall, insect-like creature became visible as a shimmering distortion in the air. The alien froze, realizing it had been detected. Kim moved first, his military training taking over. He couldn't see the creature clearly, but he could sense its exact position. Years of combat experience had taught him to trust his instincts completely. He lunged forward, tackling the invisible enemy to the ground. The collision was shocking for both sides. The alien had never been physically contacted by a creature that couldn't see it. Kim had never fought an enemy that existed only as a feeling in his mind. They crashed to the deck in a tangle of limbs, one visible and one invisible. Got it, Kim shouted, wrestling with something he could feel but barely see. The alien was stronger than a human, but Kim had surprise on his side. He wrapped his arms around the creature's torso, holding it in place while security officers rushed to help. The alien's stealth system began to flicker under the stress of physical contact. For brief moments, the crew could see glimpses of their enemy. Chitinous armor, compound eyes, and limbs that ended in sharp claws. Then the image would fade back to invisibility. It's some kind of insect creature, Dr. Foster called out as she approached with medical scanner in hand. Bio readings show a completely alien physiology. This is definitely not from Earth. Rebecca worked frantically at her portable computer, trying to analyze the energy signatures the alien was producing. Its stealth technology is incredibly advanced. It's bending light around itself while suppressing heat and sound. I've never seen anything like it. The captured alien struggled violently, clicking and hissing in a language no human could understand. Commander Thale's warrior was experiencing something that had never happened in Shrik's history, capture by a species that should have been unable to detect them. We need to get it to the medical bay for examination, Blake ordered. And we need to do it quietly. If there are others on the ship, we can't let them know we've caught this one. Kim and the security team carefully lifted the invisible prisoner, their hands maintaining contact so they could feel its position. The alien stealth system was still functioning, making it appear that they were carrying empty air. Only the resistance they felt and the occasional flicker of visibility proved they had actually captured something. In the medical bay, Dr. Foster began the difficult task of examining a patient she could barely see. The alien's biology was unlike anything in human medical records. Its exoskeleton was covered in sophisticated technological implants that seemed to be integrated with its nervous system. "This is incredible," she murmured, running her scanner over the invisible form. "The technology is grown into its body, not just attached. It's like the creature and its equipment have evolved together." Rebecca connected her analysis equipment to the medical scanner, trying to understand how the stealth system worked. The energy patterns are consistent with advanced light-bending technology, but there's something else. It's also suppressing electromagnetic signatures and sound waves simultaneously. Through careful experimentation, they discovered that the alien stealth system had a weakness. It couldn't handle multiple forms of detection at once. The technology was designed to fool sensors and visual observation, but it wasn't prepared for the combination of human instinct and environmental monitoring. "Look at this," Rebecca showed Blake the data. When Kim tackled it, the physical contact overloaded its stealth system. The technology can't compensate for direct physical interaction. Kim studied the readings with interest. "That means we can fight them if we can get close enough. Their invisibility won't help if we're in direct contact." The breakthrough came when Dr. Foster managed to activate the aliens' communication device. The technology was beyond human understanding, but it was clearly designed to connect with others of its kind. Through the device, they could hear clicking sounds and electronic signals that suggested a complex communication network. "There are more of them," Blake said grimly. "Probably spread throughout the ship. This one was part of a larger group." Kim examined the aliens' equipment with the eye of an experienced soldier. "These aren't scientific instruments. This creature is a warrior equipped for combat and reconnaissance. We're dealing with a military infiltration force." The captured alien finally stopped struggling and began to observe its captors with intelligent compound eyes. When its stealth system flickered off for a moment, the crew could see that it was studying them with the same intensity they were using to examine it. "It's learning about us," Rebecca realized, "just like we're learning about it. This is some kind of intelligence-gathering mission." Blake made a decision that would change the course of the encounter. "We're going to try to communicate with it. If we can understand what it wants, maybe we can figure out how to stop the others." The alien scout Vrix of the Shrix Empire found itself in an impossible situation. It had been captured by creatures that should have been unable to detect it, using methods that no other species had ever employed. As it watched the humans work together, using their primitive instincts to overcome advanced technology, Vrix began to understand that its people had seriously underestimated these strange creatures. The hunt had begun, but the roles of predator and prey were not what anyone had expected. 3 weeks had passed since the capture of Scout Vrix, and the crew of the Meridian had learned everything they could about their invisible enemies. The alien had eventually begun communicating through a combination of gestures, simple words, and electronic signals from its technology. What they discovered changed everything. "The invasion fleet will arrive in 4 days," Rebecca translated from the alien's clicking communication device. 12 ships carrying thousands of Shrix warriors. They expect to find us completely unprepared. "Captain." Blake studied the star charts that Vrix had reluctantly provided. "According to this, they've conquered 17 other species using identical tactics. Invisible infiltration followed by surprise attacks. No one has ever detected them before." Kim paced around the conference room, his mind working through tactical possibilities. "That's their weakness. They've never had to fight an enemy that could sense them. Their entire military strategy is based on being invisible." The crew had spent weeks perfecting their ability to detect the remaining Shrix infiltrators on the ship. They had identified 11 more aliens through a combination of human instinct and environmental monitoring. The invisible enemies had no idea they were being tracked. "We need to let them think they've succeeded," Blake announced. "When the invasion fleet arrives, they need to believe we're helpless and unaware. That's our only advantage." The plan they developed was audacious and dangerous. They would stage a fake disaster, making it appear that the Meridian had been destroyed by a reactor explosion. The surviving Shrix would report back to their fleet that the humans were eliminated, leading the invasion force into a carefully prepared trap. Dr. Foster worked with the engineering team to create realistic damage to the ship's hull. They used controlled explosions to simulate battle damage while secretly reinforcing the actual structure. Pat O'Brien programmed the ship's systems to broadcast distress signals and then go silent as if everyone aboard had died. "The hardest part will be convincing the invisible aliens that we're actually dead," Rebecca pointed out. "They'll be watching our every move." Kim had a solution for that problem. "We'll use their own stealth technology against them. If we can make them believe we can't detect them, they'll report what they think they're seeing. The crew began an elaborate performance, acting as if they were unaware of the invisible watchers. They staged arguments about equipment failures, expressed confusion about the strange incidents, and behaved as if they were slowly dying from life support problems. Meanwhile, they secretly prepared for the real battle. Every human settlement within communication range received detailed instructions on how to detect invisible enemies. The techniques Kim had developed were transmitted to military bases, civilian colonies, and space stations throughout human territory. Remember, Blake. Broadcast to the human fleet commanders, trust your instincts over your instruments. These aliens can fool our technology, but they can't fool millions of years of human evolution. When you feel like you're being watched, you are. The Shrix infiltrators aboard the Meridian observed the humans' apparent desperation with satisfaction. Commander Thale, who had been hiding in the ship's lower decks, sent regular reports to the invasion fleet. The primitive humans were behaving exactly as expected, showing no awareness of Shrik's presence. Infiltration successful, Thale reported to the invasion commander. Human subjects display no detection capabilities. Their technology is primitive and their awareness is limited. Recommend immediate assault. 4 days later, the Shrix invasion fleet emerged from hyperspace near Earth's outer colonies. 12 massive ships appeared simultaneously, their own stealth systems making them nearly invisible to human sensors. The fleet commander, Admiral Drex, felt confident that this would be another easy conquest. Begin infiltration protocol, Admiral Drex ordered. Deploy advanced scouts to all human settlements. Establish observation posts and identify high-value targets. We will strike when they are completely unprepared. The Shrix warriors spread out across human space, their stealth systems making them invisible to detection. They had used this strategy 17 times before, and it had never failed. The humans should have been sitting targets, unaware of the death approaching them. But something was wrong from the very beginning. Human defenders seemed to know exactly where the invisible scouts were positioned. Guards would patrol areas where Shrix observers had established hiding spots. Military personnel would change their routines to avoid paths that invisible enemies were using. Admiral, one of the scout commanders, reported nervously, "The humans are behaving strangely. They appear to be avoiding our positions without being able to see us." Admiral Drex dismissed the report. Impossible. No species has ever detected Shrix stealth technology. Continue with the mission. The truth became clear when the main assault began. Shrix warriors, who should have been able to strike from complete concealment, found themselves under accurate fire from human defenders. Ships that should have been invisible were being tracked by human sensors that seemed to know exactly where to look. They can see us, Commander Thale realized with growing horror as he watched the battle unfold. Somehow, these primitive creatures can detect our warriors? Human fighter pilots were engaging invisible Shrix ships with impossible accuracy. Ground forces were throwing grenades at empty spaces that turned out to contain hidden enemies. The entire invasion was falling apart because the humans could sense what they couldn't see. Admiral Drex watched his forces being systematically destroyed by an enemy that should have been helpless. How is this possible? Our stealth technology is perfect. We have conquered 17 civilizations with these methods. The answer came from an unexpected source. Rebecca Hayes, broadcasting from the supposedly destroyed Meridian, appeared on all Shrix communication channels. "Your stealth technology is perfect," she said calmly. "But you made one mistake. You assumed that all intelligent species would lose their primitive survival instincts as they develop technology." The transmission continued as human forces pressed their advantage across multiple battle zones. Humans evolved as prey animals on a dangerous world. For millions of years, we survived by sensing threats we couldn't see. Your invisibility means nothing to creatures who learn to detect hidden predators in complete darkness. Admiral Drex felt something he had never experienced before: fear. His warriors were being hunted by enemies who seemed to possess supernatural abilities. Ships that had been invisible for thousands of years were being destroyed by humans who somehow knew exactly where they were. "All units retreat," he ordered desperately. Emergency withdrawal to hyperspace coordinates. We must warn the Empire that these humans possess unknown detection methods, but it was too late for an organized retreat. Human forces had been waiting for this moment, using their ability to sense invisible enemies to predict Shriek's movements. Every escape route was blocked by defenders who seemed to know where the fleeing aliens would go. Kim coordinated the ground assault from a command center that had been hidden from Shriek's observation for weeks. Remember, trust your instincts. When you feel like something's about to move, it probably is. When empty space feels dangerous, there's a reason. The battle became a complete reversal of everything the Shrieks had experienced. Their greatest strength had become their greatest weakness. The stealth technology that had made them unstoppable against other species was useless against humans who could sense their presence through evolutionary instincts. Captain Blake watched the tactical display as Shriek ships were systematically eliminated. "It's not that we can see them," he explained to his crew. "We just know where they are. Millions of years of evolution taught our ancestors to sense hidden dangers, and we never lost that ability." Scout Vrix, still a prisoner aboard the Meridian, observed the battle's outcome with a mixture of respect and terror. The Shrieks had built their empire on the belief that invisibility was the ultimate weapon, but these humans had proven that ancient instincts could defeat advanced technology. "Your people are remarkable," Vrix clicked to Rebecca through its translation device. "We studied 17 species before attacking them. All had developed beyond their primitive senses. Only humans retain the ability to detect unseen threats." The final phase of the battle took place near the Shriek's command ship. Admiral Drex found himself surrounded by human vessels that had tracked his invisible flagship through methods he couldn't understand. His crew was panicking as human weapons targeted their ship with impossible precision. "Surrender now," Blake's voice came over the communication channels. "Your stealth technology is useless against us. We can sense every ship in your fleet." Admiral Drex looked at his tactical display in disbelief. Every Shriek's vessel was being tracked by human forces, the invasion force that should have conquered. Another primitive species was being destroyed by creatures who fought with instincts instead of instruments. "How did you detect us?" he asked in defeat. Rebecca answered from the Meridian's bridge. "We listened to warnings that your technology can't silence. When you move through space, you change air pressure. When you breathe, you create heat signatures our senses can detect. When you watch us, we feel your attention. You're not invisible to creatures who evolved to sense hidden predators." The remaining Shriek ships were captured or destroyed within hours. The invasion that should have taken days to complete had been reversed in a matter of hours. For the first time in their history, the Shrieks faced defeat at the hands of a species they had considered primitive. As the battle ended, human forces began liberating the 17 worlds that the Shrieks had conquered. The invisible empire that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries crumbled when faced with enemies who could sense what they couldn't see. Commander Thale, now a prisoner like Scout Vrix, tried to understand what had happened. "We perfected invisibility over thousands of years. How did your species counter it so easily?" Kim smiled as he escorted the defeated alien to detention. "You perfected technology. We kept our humanity. Sometimes the oldest weapons are the most effective ones." In the months that followed, humans became known throughout the galaxy as the species that could fight invisible enemies. The Shriek's empire fell completely as human forces, guided by their evolutionary instincts, liberated world after world from invisible oppression. Dr. Foster studied the captured Shriek's technology with fascination. Their stealth systems are incredibly advanced, but they were designed to fool artificial sensors and logical minds. They never considered that some species might rely on instinct and intuition. The crew of the Meridian had started their mission as simple researchers, but they had ended it as the defenders who saved the galaxy from an invisible threat. They had proven that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their weapons, but their ability to sense danger in the darkness. Rebecca looked out at the stars from the Meridian's observation deck, knowing that human instincts would continue to guard against threats that technology couldn't detect. The galaxy was safer because humans had never forgotten how to be afraid of things they couldn't see. Sometimes the most primitive abilities were also the most powerful ones.